we are dealing with an all-important place of supply in Module 5, Section 2, which will help us determine whether our supply is interstate or intrastate, what are the taxes that we'll have to levy, IGST or CGST or SCST, and a lot more. So, we'll check out the place of supply for domestic supply of goods in this video. Remember, this includes only domestic supply of goods. If there is an import or export, it is not included under these rules. Only supply within the Indian territory. We can broadly divide the rules relating to place of supply for domestic goods into 4 categories. First, where there is movement involved or not involved. Second, where there is a supply to a third party or an intermediary. Third, where there is installation at site. And fourth, supply is on a conveyance, on board a conveyance. These are the 4 categories, and we'll check each of these one by one, beginning with the first, of course, of movement. This category involves 2 situations. One, where movement of good is involved, and second, where there is no movement of good involved. Here, the movement that we are talking about is if the goods have to cross the boundary of a state, because only then will the place of supply not remain within one state. If it's within one state, then it just makes the job that much more easier. There's only one state government, one administration, and one tax revenue authority. The situation is best understood with an example. Consider this case where manufacturer A is in Karnataka and he sends garments to B. The recipient consumer B is in Maharashtra and B receives these consignment of garments at its location in Mumbai. In this scenario, the place of supply would be the location of goods where the movement terminates for delivery to the recipient. So the goods is moving from Karnataka to Maharashtra. The recipient collects it in Mumbai. So the delivery is completed, the movement terminates right there for delivery to recipient, and therefore in our situation the place of supply would be Mumbai because B receives it at Mumbai. Termination of movement. Simple situation. Again, it follows the rule of destination based consumption tax because it's ideally the location of the recipient itself. It's just that it's routed through the goods. The movement of goods should terminate. That's the logic involved. Moving on to a scenario where there's no movement involved. Again, let's take up an example. Let's take up the example of shop A in Bangalore. This shop sells mobile phones. The recipient consumer B is also in Bangalore. B steps into shop A, purchases the phone he likes, and the transaction is complete. The supply of goods takes place within the shop itself and there's no movement involved for completing the supply. Therefore, the place of supply when no movement of goods is involved would be the location of the goods at the time of delivery to the recipient. In our example, B steps into the shop and purchases the phone. Therefore, the location of the phone at the time of supply is shop A, and that is the place of supply. In our situation, it is Bangalore. That is the situation related to movement. Simple. Where there is movement involved, the location would be the place where movement terminates for delivery to recipient, while where there is no movement involved, the location would be the location of goods at the time of delivery of recipient. These are the place of supply in the respective category. Moving on to the second situation of third party or intermediary. Now, what is the situation here? We need to understand this first before we decide the place of supply. Again, let's take up our example. The recipient consumer B is in Maharashtra. The manufacturer A, who's the supplier in our case, is in Karnataka. B instructs A to send goods to C. C is located in Delhi. So C is the third party. Even if he is the agent or not, it's a third party transaction. The recipient has instructed the supplier to deliver the goods to a third party, and C receives these goods by title or not. Whether he's the owner or not, it doesn't make a difference. He receives the goods on the instruction of the recipient, and this is the situation that we are dealing in, where the supplier delivers goods to a recipient or any person on the direction of a third person. Whether the third person is an agent or not does not make a difference. In this situation, the place of supply would be the principal place of business of this third party. We already know what a principal place of business stands for. We've seen the definition while we discussed the location of supplier of services. Recall that a principal place of business would be either a place of business for which registration has been obtained, it's just called a place of business, or any place other than the place of business for which registration has been obtained if the supply is made on that place, or in the absence of any of these places, the usual place of residence. For corporates, it could be the place where the company is incorporated. For an individual, of course, his home where he usually resides. That's what you mean by principal place of business, and this is the scenario. In our case, the place of supply would be Delhi, because the principal place of business of the third party is in Delhi. And that's all that we need to discuss for second scenario. Moving to the third one, where installation is at site. This is a simple one to imagine. Let's bring back our example. The manufacturer A is in Karnataka. The recipient consumer B is in Maharashtra, but he owns a factory in Delhi. The manufacturer A has to install a machine for B's factory in Delhi, and the machine is assembled and installed on site in the factory in Delhi. In this situation, you can easily guess. Simple logic, the place of supply would be nothing but the place of installation or assembly of the goods. In our example, the place of supply would be the factory in Delhi. And that takes us to the last scenario in domestic place of supply for goods, which is supply on board a conveyance. Now take a scenario where a plane takes off from Karnataka, and this airline sells certain merchandise to customers on board. While the plane is flying over Mumbai, a merchandise is sold. The plane's final destination, the landing place, is in Delhi. So, in this scenario, the place of supply of that merchandise which was sold would be the location at which the goods are taken on board. Let's apply this logic to our example. We've seen that the plane takes off from Karnataka. Even though the goods are sold while the plane was over Mumbai, the place of supply would be Karnataka. Why? Because that's the place where the goods are taken on board, loaded onto the conveyance. Therefore, in situation where goods are consumed or supplied on board a conveyance, the place of supply would be the place where such goods are actually loaded onto the conveyance. With that, we've covered all the provisions relating to place of supply for domestic transfer of goods, supply of goods. All of these rules are very logical because they follow the underlying principle of destination-based consumption. When there's movement involved, the place of supply would be the location where the movement terminates for delivery to recipient. When there's no movement, the location of goods at the time of delivery to recipient would be the place of supply. In case of a third party or intermediary instructed delivery, the principal place of business of the third party would be the place of supply. If the supply is through installation at site, then the place of installation would be the place of supply. If there's supply on board a conveyance, if goods are supplied on board a conveyance, the place of supply would be the place from which the goods are loaded, taken onto the conveyance. That brings us to the end of the first subsection of our place of supply, domestic supply of goods. Next, we'll check out the international supply of goods, only goods, in the upcoming video.